Good morning, Jags. This is Fahad. Today is Wednesday, July 22nd. I have Chronicle with me here. Hi, Chronicle. How are you?
Hi Fahad, I'm doing all right. It's about 11 p.m. here right now, having my nightly beer while doing this. Excited to get this show on the road.
Oh, you know what? That's great. By the way, anybody who does not know, Chronicle lives in Malaysia. And we always look forward to the content that Chronicle puts forward, comes to us with. And so today, Chronicle will be discussing Pinduoduo. How do you say this name in Chinese?
So in Chinese, it's called Pinduoduo.
Pinduoduo. In America, I guess we would say Pinduoduo or whatever.
Yep,
Perfect. So you have this fantastic research piece here. We're going to cover this in detail, and the full note will also be provided in JaguarMedia once this video is up. Um, and you want to look at this stock from both angles, bullish and bearish. And
correct.
expectation at the end of this presentation is that at some point this will provide a really good entry because it has enjoyed some really good, powerful trend in recent months as e-commerce penetration has accelerated. So we're going to be more opportunistic. We're going to present the case here, both the bullish and the bearish points, so people are aware of everything. But then from an entry standpoint, we're going to wait for further pullback before making a recommendation to clients at that point. So with that said, let's get started. Tell me about it.
Sure. So before we begin, let me ask you, Fahad. Let's say you're out shopping on Amazon for a new TV, right? And so you click on the TV and you add it to your shopping cart. Then all of a sudden, a button pops up from a group of other Amazon users saying, "Hey, Fahad, there's about 20 of us here who are also wanting to buy a TV." And that button is asking you, how about you team up with us and form a group purchase of 20 TVs in return for a discount? If you were presented with that offer, would you take it?
That's something I had never thought of, and I guess it would depend on the discount price. But that sounds like a pretty interesting, neat idea. Now that I think about this, I wonder how come we don't have that in the US? Because if you think about how much the volume sales that Amazon does for particularly key products, it would think that this could be something significant, right? Interesting concept. So is that where Pinduoduo excels in China?
Yeah, that's exactly what it's all about. So taking a look at the first slide, the first thing we need to touch on is what the phrase Pinduoduo actually means, because it does encapsulate what this company is all about. To keep it short, the word pin in Chinese means to get together, and duo, which is pronounced duo, it can either mean more or a lot. And in the context of this company, the repetition of duo is meant to symbolically represent two things, more fun and more savings. So locally in China, this phrase actually has an intentional double meaning. If we take it symbolically, it means when everyone's together, there'll be more savings and more fun. And if taken literally, it also means imperatively, hey, everybody, let's be more together. A lot of mainstream financial media, they often fail to talk about this second meaning. They only talk about the first one, but this essentially is what Pinduoduo, the company, is all about. So on the next slide, to put it simply, Pinduoduo is a social e-commerce platform that encourages users to interact and team up with one another in return for discounts. The larger the group, the larger the order, and the larger the discount. And the thing is, discounts already begin with groups of just two people. So the incentive is always to group up with at least one other person. Meanwhile, the company runs what we call a C2M model, where products are shipped directly to the consumer straight from the manufacturers, including fresh farm produce. And also, the manufacturers get to receive real-time consumer analytics, product research, user preferences, and the like, which helps them further improve their offerings.
Is this pretty comprehensive platform that carries inventory that from almost all kinds of product lines? So whether it's consumer gadgets or it's groceries and clothing, are there more niche category that target group sales? to only certain parts of the total product portfolio?
So Pinduoduo covers goods among throughout every category. So from fresh produce and food to consumer goods, and more recently, even electric cars.
Wow. So people can do group purchases of
Yep.
electric cars? Wow. Okay. So, but I'm more excited about how the actual mechanism, how does this actually really work? So let's suppose in terms of groceries, I want to buy fresh apples, green apples. How would that work with group purchases?
Right. So if we open up the app and look at the interface, it's basically filled with lists of recommendations from groups. So rather than a search bar, you're scrolling through all the advertisements that groups are putting out to look for more buyers to join their bulk purchases. And these groups can either send invites through the app or through WeChat, which is an extremely popular messaging and digital payment app. So on the next slide, we can see that this company has been growing rapidly ever since its inception. And a lot of that growth is because the app also comes with a lot of games, lots of gifts and prizes, and even bonus cash prizes based on app usage and friend recruitment. Like you can only claim your cash prize if you log in a certain amount of times a day. Part of that, the company's philosophy is that China has already grown accustomed to online purchasing, but a lot of e-commerce apps were still lacking in the user experience department. So a lot of these features do help to get a lot of people to keep coming back. In terms of where the company is today, you can see that it's roughly 60% of their users are from tier 3 and lower cities. Meanwhile, the company has 628 million active buyers, and they currently rank 7th nationally in terms of monthly active users.
This is some fantastic stuff. Are they only in China or have they started to roll out in other nearby countries as well?
They're only in China. They have tried to get foreign sellers onto the platform, but it's been very difficult because, as we all know, China has a closed network where vendors can't really advertise what they're selling on, say, Google or Facebook or Twitter or any of
Yeah.
those popular
Yeah.
social media apps in the US.
Okay, well, so this is an unexplored market outside of China for them, which to me is not necessarily negative, but rather an opportunity that could come down the road. Tell me about the comparisons to Alibaba, JD.com, and all that.
Sure. So when Pinduoduo was first founded, the company made it very clear that it was going after the lower income demographics and the non-tier one and tier two markets that were less served by JD and Alibaba. As a result, on the left chart, we can see here that Pinduoduo has noticeably higher exposure to rural markets. And because it operates more in the countryside and smaller cities, the second chart shows the company has an older user base while both Alibaba and JD tend to have younger users. And on the third chart, we can see this strategy is working because Pinduoduo has had little trouble so far in increasing its share of the pie with each passing year. And if we go to the next slide, we have three reasons, or rather three pillars behind this success. The first pillar is Pinduoduo's decision to have WeChat integration. WeChat has over 1.1 billion users in China, and this app is quite unique in the sense that its user base is evenly spread out across the country, not just the major cities. Believe it or not, it's also more popular with senior citizens than it is with younger people. Like we're talking an adoption rate of 98.5% among Chinese people over 60 with a smartphone. And the
Wow.
main reason behind this popularity of WeChat among older people is that they use the app as their primary source of communication and information sharing, as well as social support, because we have to remember that most of the country outside of the major cities still lacks basic public services and safety nets. So WeChat essentially becomes the only means for them to sort of form a close-knit community and reach one another quickly. So that's pillar number one. The next pillar is Pinduoduo's generic brand positioning. So unlike Alibaba and JD, Pinduoduo's listings tend to be more generic and off-brand in nature. Part of that is to keep costs down, but the other reason is because the company understood that lower tier markets and older demographics they're targeting are not as brand conscious. Like they're more concerned about lower prices and socializing more than anything else. As for the last pillar, the company has been the biggest beneficiary of rapid rural adoption of e-commerce, especially in the fresh produce category. All these regions, they've been pretty eager to get their first taste of e-commerce. And more importantly, the company is also a beneficiary of the live streaming trend in China. About 62% of mobile users in China are now active viewers of live streaming. Are you familiar with the term, Fahad?
I have seen it in action, actually. Not really part of it, not interacted as much myself to see, but I've seen it on the internet how it actually works. On the rural adoption side, I think this part actually I find the most fascinating about this company because that was the part that was most underpenetrated before COVID-19 happened. And we have seen tremendous amount of anecdotal evidence of heavy acceleration in e-commerce penetration in rural markets. And considering the older population, that has clearly benefited PDD as a result.
Yep, that's absolutely correct. If anyone's not familiar with the term, live streaming is basically an integrated feature in a lot of Chinese commerce apps, e-commerce apps today, where the vendors film themselves live promoting and trying on their products. And in some cases, they may even film how these products are made. Meanwhile, the viewers are able to post live comments and even chat with the vendors. And there's also buttons on the screen that give the viewers an option to purchase the products on the spot. This has been a big tailwind for Pinduoduo because, as Fahad mentioned, a lot of fresh produce farmers and other rural businesses, they've started doing what we call outdoor live streaming, where they're filming themselves at work while they're talking to viewers. And on this slide, we can see all these vendors, examples of all these vendors live streaming themselves, selling all types of things from food to clothing, even pets. And they've also brought on Western celebrities. Like you can see in one of the images here with Kim Kardashian. This was a pretty impressive story, actually. Basically, Alibaba Taobao, they brought Kim Kardashian on a live stream sometime last year to promote her perfume. And you won't believe this, Fahad, but within minutes of Kim Kardashian's live stream, 15,000 bottles of perfume were sold. So that should give you an idea of the kind of power live streaming has.
This is really interesting stuff because this is the e-commerce level to a completely new paradigm shift where basically in America we e-commerce is still mostly understood as you go to a website, you find the product you want, you press, you enter your credit card number, you're done, and it gets shipped to you. And depending on your shipping methodology, whether it's Prime or Walmart Plus or not, and then it's over. But this is the interactive part of this, the live streaming, the group concession discounts, bringing out the celebrities to showcase. We have not seen this type of e-commerce type of environment in the US come at all. So this is a lot of this that we're discussing about Pinduoduo right now is actually fairly brand new to anybody in the US. Hopefully we could see something like this in the US as well down the road, but interesting stuff. Moving on, now let's go to the financials. So this is where the fun number charts begin. So very stealth, strong GMV growth, revenue growth, monetization rates have been rather very strong. Strong active user spending environment going on for several quarters now. High level view over here. Do you see any red flags over here on this metric, or there's something down the road that you would be worried about?
So top line wise, everything looks great to me. And on top of these charts here, I would also add that live streaming statistics have gone through the roof with people staying at home. But yeah, as you said, it's on the next slide. That's where the problems really are. Basically, we can see this company loses money and adds expenses almost at the same pace that it's growing its revenues and user adoption. And if we zoom to the next slide, it shows that this company's um, operating losses are ballooning because of its group buying incentives and merchant subsidies. So on the next slide, earlier I talked about how Pinduoduo users maximize discounts by forming groups, right? And but under the hood, this company actually pays the merchants a big part of the difference between the actual selling price and the discounted price. And further, as I've also mentioned, this company gives out frequent cash rewards and free products and coupons. That all adds up. And also lately, the company has had to spend a lot of money securing exclusive deals with merchants, meaning they cannot list their products anywhere else. And this has become a fast-growing expense because the company is trying to shed its image of being only a seller of generic and bargain products. Because as we're going to touch on soon, Alibaba and JD are currently expanding into the lower tier cities. So because of all this, the company's cash levels have plunged 76% over the past year. And they've had to hide that negative operating cash flow in their financials by using an accounting trick, which is discussed in pages 6 and 7 in the attached note to this video if you're interested. But the short version is that they are quote unquote borrowing money from their merchants and recording it as operating cash flow. Also worth mentioning that Pinduoduo did carry out a questionably timed capital raise of $1.1 billion in late last quarter when the stock was around $36. The stock then rallied all the way to $99 over the following months. So either the company didn't anticipate substantial gains, which is unlikely, or they simply needed cash.
The important thing about this piece about running losses is that the only part that worries me, I'm not generally speaking um, as concerned about rising or mounting losses from early adopters and strong growth companies that continue to show strong top line revenue growth profile with increasing user base, as long as they're able to show some sort of control over the margins. And if we see a trend emerge that is so widely different, where top line revenue continues to grow, but it's being funded by margins with consistently deteriorating, ultimately that leads to company constantly tapping the equity or the secondary share market or the debt markets to raise capital in order to plug the hole in the free cash flow. That seems to be the case over here, but seems like that if they can stabilize this even from this point on, that may actually not be a concern. But when I see charts like this, you know, maybe not a concern for 1 or 2 quarters, but a prolonged deterioration in operating losses of this magnitude could be a concern down the road. Moving on to the next slide, rural competition. Tell me about this, Chronicle.
Sure. We're going to take a look at recent measures that competitors Alibaba and JD are taking to encroach on Pinduoduo's countryside turf, so to speak. Alibaba has, for its part, revisited its previous Taobao villages concept, and the attached note explains why it previously failed. But this time round, Alibaba has launched a massive PR campaign, like they're live streaming farm producers at work. They've also brought local celebrities visiting to visit the countryside. They've gotten endorsements from local small city mayors and politicians, and so on. As I've said, this farm live streaming business is pretty huge. Like just last week, KeyBank was out with a note saying Pinduoduo has been capturing 50% of agricultural e-commerce growth, while Alibaba is also seeing steadily increasing traffic from Taobao Live, its live streaming app. And at the same time, Alibaba is also carrying out its plan to create 1,000 modern agricultural centers across the country. All of this seems to be working because the company reported 70% of its 102 million newly acquired annual active users in 2019 from smaller cities. And more recently, during last month's 618 shopping festival, the company broke 1 billion yuan in rural sales of fresh produce for the first time, while attributing 5.1 billion in rural sales to live streaming.
Interesting stuff. So they're basically starting to encroach into Alibaba's turf with the kind of live stream campaign that is going on. And now the real competition related to JD.
Yeah, so the biggest thing here is that JD has created a network of rural service centers, and they've also reintroduced drones in an effort to fulfill deliveries to smaller cities within 24 hours. Meanwhile, the company has also rebranded and upgraded its group buying platform, which competes directly with Pinduoduo. They renamed their app Jingxi, and more importantly, they've added WeChat integration. And as a result of these efforts, the company reported $38 billion in orders during 618, up 33% year over year, and 71% of their new customers came from smaller cities, with transactions from lower tier markets increasing 160%. Lately, over the last month or so, the market has started to place a higher premium on Chinese tech companies as a basket. Like you can see, almost every graph there is turning higher lately. So that's another piece of information there.
Yeah, great stuff. Yeah, we have seen because the e-commerce adoption in the entire country has continued to push into an acceleration mode ever since COVID happened, and I think that may be the reason why the overall trend has been to apply higher and higher valuation to the entire group. But PDD clearly commands the highest premium. Um, so that ends the presentation. Now, we're going to be more active on this one once the stock is settled back into my expectation would be somewhere in the mid 70s. And once we get the price to come in and the mid 70s to low 70s, at that point we'll look potentially for a trade idea to step in using some sort of diagonal spread. I think the stock needs to come in a little bit more, needs to settle down after a very strong run, and at that point this would present a much better opportunity. This is a fantastic presentation. I learned so much from this today, Chronicle, so thanks for putting this together, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you.